The Brax government has referred the question of adoption to the Victorian Law Reform Commission. Mm-hmm. The Commission is currently examining that reference along with the other reference that is of interest to the community, which of course is the assisted reproductive
I was coming to that
technology reference. So those two major references are currently with the Victorian Law Reform Commission. Our government referred those matters to the Law Reform Commission because we do believe that the law needs updating and amending and changing, but we believe that the Law Reform Commission is the appropriate independent body to recommend changes to the Victorian government and the Victorian Parliament about the way forward. I'm not going to prejudge the recommendations of the Law Reform Commission, but I would imagine that if the Brax government is re-elected in November, that we would pay extremely close regard to the recommendations that come forward from that Law Reform Commission. It's interesting that the Liberal Party leader has recently come out and said that the Liberal Party in government would not amend the law in relation to adoption. They're prepared to preempt and prejudge the Law Reform Commission process. Of course, when the Liberals were in government last time, they abolished the Law Reform Commission and we brought it back as an independent law reform advisory body. We believe it has an important role to play in these issues, and we give it a lot of credit and standing. And the Liberal Party have clearly got a view that they don't believe that equality in that regard to adoption or assisted reproductive technology is appropriate. We will look at the results of the Law Reform Commission report very carefully and give it very serious consideration.
Our policy is to remove all laws which prevent adoption on the basis of sexual orientation, as well as the adopted mother's name or father's name appearing on the birth certificate.
There's also the issue about IVF. I mean, Victorian women don't at the moment have access to in vitro fertilisation. They have to go up to Albury Wodonga or whatever. Do you think that situation should change too?
Yes, our policy also covers this area of discrimination as well. We support abolishing all laws which prevent that.
I've got close friends that I supported through an IVF process, and they had a Melbourne donor, and they had to fly to Sydney for the IVF process for a year until then she could be deemed infertile, and then she could get the IVF process here in Melbourne. But for that year it was incredibly stressful, and I'm not surprised she didn't fall pregnant. It was very costly, and you know, she had to time it to do with her ovulation, and it was just nobody should have to go through that. IVF is difficult anyway, and to put people through that is just it's a waste of resources as well, because it costs a lot of money, and if somebody's that stressed that they're not going to get pregnant, you should be making it as easy as possible.
The problems don't end there, of course, because even if the mother in a same-sex partnership does become pregnant, her partner doesn't appear on the child's birth certificate.
Look, that whole situation is so unfair. My friend's baby would not exist without both those women's input. They supported each other through the whole process. Now the baby is born, and that process was 2 years, by the way, and now the baby's born, they have complete shared parenting, but the donor father has more rights than the non-birth mother. It's a ridiculous situation that the donor father sperm, or the donor sperm father, has seen the child twice in its life, and yet he could pick the child up from school, where my friend Kathy has to pay $1,000 to do some legal form just to be able to pick the child up from school. Well, she's not school age yet, she's under 1, but they're just coming into these, to realising how cumbersome the whole legal process is going to be.
Good evening, and I'm Harriet. I haven't seen you for a while, and I'm back after a few months of not being on camera. I've got a very interesting guest with me today, a very versatile man really. Andrew Burry is the fundraiser for the Victorian AIDS Council, and his position entails such a lot, doesn't it, Andrew? Hello.
Hi Harriet, good evening, how are you?
It's lovely seeing you again.
Yes, it's...
I see you every Tuesday night
Yes, of course
anyway,
you do.
don't I?
Of course you do. Yes, it's quite an interesting, varied role, as you say.
Yeah, and what is that? And how did you get this job? Well, I met you at Joy reading the news.
Yes,
and then
that's right.
suddenly you disappeared for a few weeks, and then
Popped
I
up
saw
again.
you at the VAC, and there you were in this leading role as fundraiser coordinator. What does that mean, really?
Well, originally I was planning to volunteer at the Victorian AIDS Council, but then I saw the job and I thought, well, it might be a good thing to do for a couple of years at least anyway, and see what we could do. But the role essentially, as it sounds, is to raise money for the organisation. Like all community organisations, it's perennially short of cash. And part of the way that that needs to happen is to ensure that the council's work is is publicised, and some of the things that we do that people don't know about.
So you get out and about, don't you? Quite a lot.
I do, yes, it's certainly
You
part of the job.
meet famous people.
Well,
don't you?
yeah, occasionally.
And I've seen you sneak off to the MAC meetings. What was that?
One,
Cosmetics.
yes, well, obviously hasn't done much for me, but
I've noticed that you don't have a shine on your face today. Is that a MAC product?
let's talk about what MAC do for us, shall we?
Yeah.
MAC's actually a fantastic supporter of the Victorian AIDS Council, particularly David Williams Fund. In fact, MAC worldwide have a program called the MAC AIDS Fund, and in the last 10 years or so, they've raised more than $86 million.
Whoa.
And in Victoria, we have received about $600,000 over the last 6 years.
That's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what's really amazing
Yeah.
is that they have a lipstick that they sell in all the MAC outlets called Viva Glam, and that sells for around $34. And every cent of that $34 comes to David Williams Fund.
Oh, right.
In
So
Victoria.
get out there, buy the MAC lipstick.
Absolutely, you know.
Fabulous colours. I've seen those colours.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
this isn't one of them.
Sexy, mouth-watering.
But that's an amazingly generous thing to do. So we try to obviously do what we can to look after them. But they've been so generous over the years.
Yeah.
Well, many people have been generous too.
You've got an event, a really huge event
Yes.
coming up. Short and girly show on at Her Madge is in the city here in Melbourne, and I think it's on the 24th, Friday the 24th. It starts at 8 p.m, but you have to start getting tickets now because I'm sure they're selling really well.
They are indeed,
as we
yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
And who are the people that have donated their amazing creative talents?
Well, we've got 8 fantastic Victorian comedians, I should say,
Yes.
all female, hence Short and
Short and
Girly
Girly,
show,
yeah.
including Judith Lucy, Andrea Powell, Fiona O'Loughlin, Denise Scott, Sue-Ann Post, Monica Dullard, Rachel Berger, Cal Wilson, and a special appearance by Ethel Chop.
Oh, she's such a wicked lady, that one.
Oh, she's got a lot to say.
Yes. So that's, remember, that's on the 24th of November, 8 p.m. at Her Majesty's Theatre. And I also have, a little bird told me today that the Mercedes-Benz people are also supporting this event.
Indeed, in fact, the show is presented in association with Mercedes-Benz, and that's also a very, very generous action of them. But also Mercedes-Benz have given us 12 months use of a 7-seater Viano people mover, which
For PLC?
for PLC and PLWHA. So
Wow.
that's there to help people get to medical appointments and
That's
and
a
roundabout
fantastic idea.
Could be generous, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
So we're very pleased to be
Thank you, Mercedes. Yeah.
Indeed.
And of course, all year round you have the Red Ribbon volunteers, sellers of red ribbons. Now, where does the money go for Red Ribbon?
All the money from Red Ribbons goes directly to the David Williams Fund. So every cent goes to David Williams Fund, and every cent that goes into the David Williams Fund goes to people living with HIV/AIDS who need a little bit of financial support.
And on the 1st of December, which is World AIDS Day, is that correct?
It is, yes.
There will be a lot of events and red ribbons everywhere, we hope, for selling, and be prepared. World AIDS Day, the 1st of December, is an extremely important event. What I'd like to talk to you also and ask you about, the David Williams Fund, when was that established, roundabout?
Well, in fact, it was established 20 years ago this year. And it's kind of sad, I think, to reflect that after 20 years, not only do we still need a David Williams Fund for people living with HIV/AIDS, but in fact, the demands on the fund are higher now than they've ever been. So that's kind of a rather sad view of it. But I think what's very good about the David Williams Fund is that for 20 years it's been supported by the compassionate nature of our community. And over the time of its existence, it's both raised and distributed over $1.5 million.
Wow! And that's in things like furniture. If people with HIV or AIDS need money, support. What else is there?
Well, I think a lot of the issues that arise for people living with HIV/AIDS are things that perhaps we would normally take for granted for ourselves. But for example. We've had people living with HIV/AIDS living out of an esky, for example. Now, they've already got compromised health, and the last thing you want is to compromise that further. Or people may be too ill to leave their home, but so to provide a television or some other entertainment can just make life that much more bearable. But like much of the work of the Victorian, it's about improving quality of life. It's not just about
And of course, people are living a very long time now, and they still have major health issues in and out of that long lifespan. And there is a lot, everything's a lot more expensive. So we need the David Williams Fund needs a lot of assistance.
Well, that's why World AIDS Day is a particularly important time, and the sale of red ribbons is something that we work very hard on, but we really depend on getting as many volunteers as we can, both to make red ribbons and to get out on the streets and sell them on December the 1st.
There are a lot of other events coming up, and I'll quickly just talk about that. There's the White Gala.
Yes, the White Christmas Gala at the Market Hotel. That's on World AIDS Day itself from 9 o'clock.
Yeah. And what else is there? There's something about the rainbow. You were talking to me about
we've got the Red Ribbon Dash, which is a fun run event on the 25th of November at 9 o'clock. That's a run around the Tan.
Yeah.
Oh, we've also got new style 2006 wristbands this year too.
I was looking at that earlier, and look at this. Oh, I could wear that.
Well, I might give it to you if you're nice to. It's but we did a nice little tag this year, so it's a little bit different.
It's very elegant, Wonderful. Now, what I'd like you to ask you, what is the email? How does people book for the Short and Girly event? Do they email? Where do they go? What is
all the tickets for the Short and Girly show is through Ticketek.
Yeah.
So that's ticketek.com.au or 1300 795 012. But all the details for that are on a special website, which is www.shortandgirly.com.
Well, thank you so much for coming along this evening. It's great to see you again in this capacity on this seat on Bent TV, on Studio Q. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon again.
So you wouldn't be in favour of politicians enacting legislation that discriminates against the gay and lesbian community just to satisfy their own religious viewpoint?
Well, clearly not. And in fact, we would be completely opposed to that. We favour equality of rights and obligations rather than moving backwards. Of course, the prospect in Victoria, if the Bracks government is not re-elected in November, is that we would have a Liberal and National Party government. The National Party is extremely vehemently opposed to equal rights for gay and lesbian people. And they are really advancing a very radical right political agenda here in Victoria. Any Conservative government that included a coalition of the Liberals and the Nationals would not make any positive moves for gay and lesbian people in this state, and it would in fact be quite negative in terms of any of the important social issues that we're talking about. And that's where people like Mr. Baillieu have a great difficulty. They may or may not have a particular point of view personally that favours equal rights. We really don't know too much about those things, but they certainly as parties don't favour them. Mr. Baillieu came out with a couple of his own personal whims in the media over the last couple of months. He made a statement one day that he had no personal problem with civil unions, but then he went on to say that he didn't know how to define them. And then on radio a few days later made the point that he was against adoption, that he in fact did not believe that Victoria should move forward on its own in relation to civil unions, that it should be a national matter. Now, if it was left to the national Parliament to move on this, it would be up to Mr. Howard to make any forward progress in relation to equality and of relationships, and we know that that wouldn't happen. So Mr. Baillieu, on the one hand, has come out and said he himself has no personal problem with civil unions, but we know that his party is against it, and he in fact would not move on this if he was the Premier. He would leave it to Mr. Howard, and we know that that would mean that there'd be no progress.
Whereas Mr. Bracks has said in Parliament that he doesn't support civil unions, but most of his party seems to be generally in favour.
It's important to understand what the Premier meant by that. I think it's clear that when he said that the government does not support legislation for civil unions, what he's really talking about there is along the same lines as what some people might refer to as gay marriage, of a similar nature to what the ACT Parliament passed in recent times. What we're talking about in Victoria is within the limits of the state parliament's constitutional power, moving forward in a dialogue with the community to recognise appropriately the relationships that exist and the way in which those rights and obligations should be registered or recognised.
We don't believe religion has any place in law. People's religious views obviously change the way they deal with issues, but as an elected politician, we are there to represent the people, and that's how we should carry our position when elected.
So you can consult your conscience, but not your priest, basically.
Yes, indeed.
No, not any longer. Go to any church in Australia and count the number of people there on one hand. Religion doesn't play a role anymore. I think spirituality does. You know, individual people have their own beliefs, but religion, to my mind, was a structure really set up about power and money, not about spirituality. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but that's my view.
Suppose a lesbian parent contacts you and says their child's having problems at school because they're getting harassed because they've got two mummies. How would you be able to help a constituent in that situation?
It would then be necessary for me as a local member of Parliament to work with that family and with the school and with the school community to make sure that people were properly educated about that issue and that type of behaviour stopped.
So you could, for example, write to the school concerned or approach the school concerned?
Yes, I mean there are processes that are in place with the Education Department for systemic dealing with those sorts of issues. Now, it's not necessarily the place of a local member of Parliament to become personally involved in deciding those issues, but we need to be able to make sure that those issues are properly handled, independently handled.
You can
and,
facilitate the
and
process.
sorted out. Yes,
You can
exactly.
facilitate the
Yes.
process.
Yes.
That is a tricky one. I mean, it's not our place to go in and be a bully within the school, but
you could write a letter to the principal or something like that, or would that be a step too far?
no, I don't think we could do that. But I mean, I think the media would pick up on that, and the media would probably cover that better than what a political person could.
So one of your roles might be to put it into the press, bring it to the attention of the press.
Yeah, perhaps just highlight the issue.
Mm-hmm. And the same sort of thing, like suppose, say, one of these religious people we've been talking about, they publish a homophobic letter in the local press. What would you do then? I mean, would you write a letter of rebuttal to the paper?
I don't think that would be a good way to go, but I think a lot of people will see through that, and I think individuals would write letters, but and again highlight it in the media that it's discriminatory.
Supposing, we were talking before about religion, supposing a local newspaper publishes a letter from one of these religious homophobes, how would you respond to that?
Oh, well, I'd write a letter back. I'm very good at writing. And I write opinion pieces about things I care about. That's the only kind of journalism I do now. Mm-hmm. And I often just quickly pen off letters in response to letters to the editor. So for me, that's not even a question.
So you'd be hands-on in all those sort of situations.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, it's quite possible that your party will end up holding the balance of power in the upper house, at least, the Legislative Council. Can you just pick on one key pledge that you would make to the gay and lesbian community as to how you would use that power in the upper house? Just one key thing.
Well, initially, I think we'll be pushing forward for just to get the Civil Unions Bill brought in, just to get it into Parliament for the first time, get it debated. Mm-hmm. It may not get passed initially, but it's just to get it up there and hear what our Victorian politicians have to say on it.